Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We are indeed talking very close to the business end now. If we're not in the business end, we're out on the verge of it. It's April tomorrow, and it's World Championship time. But first, it's Tour Championship time, and even before that, it was Special Guest time.
What a great lot of teeing up you did there, Phil. I mean, we weren't excited before for the weeks to come. We certainly are now. The Tour Championship in Manchester is just underway, but in that spirit of keeping people hanging on, we've had one outrageous result already, haven't we? We'll tell people about that later. But yes, first things first, very much. We have got a guest with us, and we're delighted to do so. And it's somebody that's been a professional now for more than 2 decades. He enjoyed tournament success in a Players' Tour Championship event in 2011 and made it all the way to a Welsh Open final meeting with John Higgins in 2015. In more recent times, his snooker and life have sadly been affected by health issues, but he's claimed a number of notable match wins during this current campaign, including victory over Mark Williams at the English Open. He will soon head to World Championship qualifying in Sheffield in an attempt to make it to the Crucible for the first time since 2013. But before that, he's taking time out to speak to us. And we are very happy to say that Ben Woollaston is right here on Talking Snooker. Ben, it's great to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Just in Manchester this evening. Yeah, it's nice to speak to you and Phil
Right, it's
on a
lovely to
Monday,
have you on.
on a Monday night.
Exactly. And, we'll talk about your business in Manchester in a couple of moments' time. But first, of course, you're first and foremost a player and world qualifying coming up. I mean, goodness me, we have some events in this sport. That is an event, as us journalists say, and you players know so well, like no other.
Yeah, I honestly like watching that tournament more than even the World Championship itself. It's so exciting.
Oh, hipster. Phil, we've been saying recently that one of the great signs of a snooker hipster is to say you prefer this. So you, Ben Woollaston, are already quite hip.
Yeah, I do prefer it. Just because it means in a way more to some of the players than it does possibly at the Crucible because they're literally playing for their lives, really. They plan to stay on the tour most of the time. And until you go there, the tension is, it's high.
Yeah, yeah. Is it very much unique on the calendar? The only thing I think when people describe it, sounds a bit like Q School almost in terms of how edgy it gets.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's Q school for the professionals, really.
Yeah.
Q school's especially exciting because I've been a few times just because it's across the road from where I practiced the last few years. Q School's exciting the last couple of rounds, but I think the World Championship's exciting, from the very first day, the qualifiers.
Sure. And what's this time of year like in the week or two beforehand where I guess you guys are going around playing each other a lot? I mean, it must be excitement building ahead of this one.
Yeah, I've practiced with a few players. Last week I played Michael Holton, Stan Moody, Sanderson Lamb as well, actually. And I'm playing Gilbert next week. Haven't played him for quite a while, so that should be fun.
Anyone flying in practice that we need to look out for?
Stan played very well against me the other day. Yeah, obviously you heard a lot about him for a few years, but I really think he's come on a lot this year. A lot. Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I ummed and ahed a bit because you made one appearance for the Crucible. I thought, I might, tread around that a bit lightly. But to be fair, I did hear you on the other interview say that you yourself find that quite amazing. And it is striking if you consider what a good player you've been over the years. Is it annoying for you?
I find it a bit embarrassing, really, because some years I've only been one match away, and I've never really been more than two matches away. If you'd have told me in 2013 that, I wouldn't have qualified, since, I'd have expected to play there maybe half a dozen times, to be honest. I don't know why that is, because I would think normally it'd suit my game, like long matches, just because I'm a steady player. Um, you know, I just can't understand why I've not got there again. Hopefully this year.
I mean, is there a particular knack to that final qualifying match? Obviously, you're playing a good player. It's long format. It's unbelievably tense. Is there anything you can do to give yourself that slight advantage?
Not really. Just try and relax and not think. You're playing such a big match, really.
And look, obviously, to get there, that's the dream for all players. I mean, I'll ask you a little bit about what it was like when you were there 12 years ago later, but you know, we'll say it all so much it'll be a cliche, but that's the goal. That's what you're desperate for, isn't it? To go to that famous theatre again.
Yeah, I think I'll be better prepared hopefully this time. Yeah, that'd be the dream to get back there again.
Well, we'll go back to memory lane in a moment, but you mentioned you're in Manchester. I mean,
Yeah.
you were having a little word with us, Phil and myself, off the air. You've got a meeting tomorrow, haven't you? Tell us about that and your sort of role on the players' board.
Yeah, I've got a meeting tomorrow. Me, Ken Doherty, Mark Davis, Neil Tompkins, who's the player representative, and with Simon Brownell tomorrow, who's obviously important person for World Snooker. So yeah, it's just about next season really, and tweaking different things in the calendar and the tournaments to try, to basically improve the tournaments and the calendar next season for the players. So I've been on since I only started at the end of December. I got voted on the end of December. But it's been eye-opening and really interesting for me to get involved in that.
What was the motivation to get involved there? Was there stuff that you wanted to see changed?
Yeah, I just want it, to be better for everybody, all the players, not just the top players, middle ranked, because I've been, everywhere, probably except right at the top. But yeah, I've always been interested, and I just love snooker. I'm always watching it. Some players struggle to watch, matches, but I will watch anything, to be honest, from any level to any tournament. I will watch it. So yeah. I just just want the game to improve and be better for everybody. So that was the
And how do
driving
you think
force behind
how do you
it.
think the setup is with the board and the relationship? Does it feel like a positive one and one that can make change that you want to see happen?
I think it's early stages for me, but I would like to think that I can get my point across to the most important people and not just argue with them and just sit down and hopefully persuade them to make the changes that the players want.
And I don't know how much you could divulge about tomorrow's meeting, but is there anything on the calendar this year that you'd want to see different next year, for example?
The main thing, one of the main things is the seedings, really. I think it's 32 plays 33. I'd like that to be a bit more open. So we've had a lot of repeat draws this season in the second and third rounds. Not that still the top players would have an advantage, but have it in batches of like 8 players. So maybe 1 to 8 would play 57 to 64. So it just wouldn't be the same exact matches all the time.
That does seem to. I don't know if you've had anyone that you've played a lot, but there has been a few. It seemed like David Grace was playing Kyron Wilson every other week for ages, for example. But there have
Yeah,
been a few like that.
there has been a lot of matches. Yeah, there has been a lot of matches. Um, yeah, I think I've played Barry Hawkins a few times this year. Always in the same round. He's become a bit frustrating this season.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Sean Murphy certainly played Barry Hawkins a few times lately. Bloody yeah, we've seen that more than EastEnders in recent weeks.
Yeah.
Ben, just a bit more on the tournaments. Are there any sort of tournaments that stands out or parts of the season you think, oh, no, I'm not sure that works, that you might be arguing for? Do you hear it in the players' room? Is there frustration about, oh, you're going to China and then to the UK too quickly for events, or maybe that things are slightly in the wrong order?
Yeah, if you're around players long enough, most of it's they're complaining.
I never noticed.
Uh, yeah, there's a few tweaks hopefully on the calendar, but then they complain maybe it's a bit close before Christmas, but then would you rather have the tournament or not? Because the calendar is busy, and
Mhm.
when you look at it properly, there isn't many gaps to change that. So,
Yeah, of course.
um,
And it's a good problem to have, isn't it? Busy calendar. We do make that point on air sometimes,
yeah,
oh, we've got to go here and there, but that's a nice problem. It's when you haven't got
I think
tournaments and you're trying to fill it up. Sorry, come on.
I think the Championship League at the beginning of the season goes on for a bit too long. A lot of players feel it goes on for 3.5 weeks, and that was bought in. Um, that was bought in at the start of COVID, to have a tournament on, and then it's carried on since, having it that long. The ranking tournament Championship League, not the
Yeah.
invitation. Yeah.
So what could there be instead of that?
No, have it, but it'd just be better to shorten it really, because it's not that big a tournament and it goes on for as long as the World Championship, really. So, yeah, it's just with players going on holidays and stuff, because there's not, if they've got children and want to go on a summer holiday, June, July is the time to go. And that Championship League's the whole of July. So it's hard to book around that. I know you could miss it, but most players don't want to do that.
Yeah, of
No, and I suppose
course.
it's one of those ones that looks on the calendar like it makes the calendar look very busy. But I suppose the majority of players are only playing one day of that 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tricky one, I suppose. Yeah.
That's the only one. Yeah, that's the only one really that obviously goes on for that long. And
Mm.
it's, you know, prize money wise and ranking points, it's the smallest one.
Yeah.
I mean, we will go down memory lane in a moment, but I've certainly been critical of the way that the Players Series has worked this year. I think there was a specific issue with maybe the Hong Kong dates, but I joke about Murphy and Hawkins, but frankly, we're seeing the same matches this week as we saw the Players. That's not really ideal. So, would you, for example, be suggesting at some stage that these Players Series move back to how they were, like quite a bit of distance between the three?
I've never, I've never really been involved playing in much.
Well, you
Yeah,
were recently. You were recently at the Grand Prix, weren't you?
yeah, I was. That was a crazy story, to be honest. Yeah, because Stephen Maguire pulled out,
Yeah.
and I got a message at 7:15 in the morning. I think it was on a Monday, and they asked me, "Can I get there in time?" So I said, "When's the match?" And they said 2 p.m. tomorrow. And obviously, with the time difference, we're already what are we 3:15, so we're less than 24 hours away. I'm at home, haven't even like brushed my teeth or anything. And I looked at a flight, and the only flight that got me there in time was 11 a.m. So I've got 3 hours 45 minutes, to get from Leicester to Heathrow. Have to get there before 10 o'clock actually. So I've got 2 hours 45, and I arrived at 9:57 in the airport. 3 minutes later, 3 minutes later, and I didn't even get the flight. So I had quite a few players like say, "You must have been delighted when you got that call." I said I wasn't until I actually checked in, because I
Yeah.
was just panicking that there's no way I can make this. I kept looking at the Google Maps and it just kept going above 10 and below 10, and I thought I ain't going to make it, but I just made it. So
Wow. And you nearly pulled off the win.
yeah, I arrived about 11 in the morning, so 3 hours before. When I checked in, they said your queue probably won't make it. I said I'm not bothered. As long as I got my waistcoat, I'll borrow a queue to play. So I was actually expecting, to play really poorly, because I hadn't picked up a queue for a whole week anyway, because I just thought after Shan, I haven't got a tournament for quite a few weeks. So yeah, I did actually play quite well, which surprised me. But when you don't expect a lot, sometimes you play well.
Do you know if Stephen had just pulled out just before you found out then? Is that how late it was?
I think so because I know he had, I think, sciatica, um, and I think he wanted to wait to the last minute to see if that got better. And then
Yeah.
I was told that he couldn't even get out of bed, so he could never get on the flight. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it happened within that hour or within those few minutes.
Yeah. And then did you get to stay in Hong Kong for a bit after that, or were you straight on a plane back?
I was in Hong Kong 22 hours and I flew for 26 hours. So,
Oh dear. Wow.
because when I lost, Tatiana says, "Oh, you better get back to the kids." So she was there for an extra 2 days. I thought maybe I can stay 2 more days, but I thought it wasn't fair on my mum because I just left her within 15 minutes. I just said, "I'm off. I'm going." So then I thought I better get back home.
Oh, what a legend filling in there. Mum helping you out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what a dutiful family man going straight back. Did you get any flight sleep on the flight out there at all, or were you literally running on
None,
empty?
none, because I've obviously just woke up and I just thought I need to try
Yeah.
and I need to try and sleep, but I just the more you try, I just didn't sleep at all, and my eyes were stinging when I arrived, and I actually felt not too bad in the match to be honest, which was strange. Just maybe adrenaline, um, got me through it.
Oh, you're brilliant value on here already, I have to say. Let, let's take you back to the start, if that's all right then, Benning. Tell
Yeah.
us some more great stories. I mean, how did you first get involved in the game then? Who introduced you to it?
So my dad used to like going in pubs and stuff, so I used to play English pool just with him, and then my mum ran a youth club um, down in Surrey, and she took the children and me to where did we go? Butlins, not Pontins, Butlins. And pool you had to pay 50p a game, but snooker was free. So we were there the whole week, and she said you can play snooker because it's free. And I'd never played snooker before, so I played snooker a few times, and then obviously enjoyed it more than pool. And then when I got home, I joined a club in Aldershot. So I was about 8 or 9, so quite young.
Yeah, about to say, because people say about Leicester, but you were sort of originally from a patch I know quite well, sort of down Guildford way, weren't you?
Yeah, I was born in Guildford, lived in Frimley Green where the Lakeside Darts
Yeah.
was. And then I moved to Leicester when I was 12.
All right. Which is, of
Yeah.
course, a big hotbed, isn't it? I mean, there's so many players to ask you about. When did you first meet Mark Selby?
I used to probably when I was about 11 or 12, I used to go up to Willie Thorne's. He was always there. So when I played in junior tournaments and stuff, yeah, he was there, and Tom Ford. But yeah, I was playing with him nearly every day from when I moved up there, from when I was about 12. But
And
there was other professionals in the club, obviously Willie Thorne,
Yeah.
Stefan Masrosis, Eddie Manning, Joe Joggier,
Yeah.
Darren Clark. There was a lot of pros in one club. Yeah. So for me, it was just a dream. 12, 13. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean that Malcolm Thorne's tournaments and stuff, they're really spoken of so highly by so many people. I guess you've got the same story to tell.
Yeah. There's no. I just don't think there's ever been a club, as good as Willie Thorne's club. I know they talk about Northern Snooker Centre now, but it's just not. It's just nowhere near the same as Willie Thorne's was. Yeah, Malcolm, I think, is a big reason. Obviously things have changed and there's more social media and computer games. But for the English players, I think his tournaments were, the reason why there's so many good juniors around, when he was doing the tournaments.
Who was the standout there? Was it Selby or I seem to
I've,
remember hearing Ford, but Ford was a bit higher up, really.
I've always asked, I used to ask Malcolm, who's the best junior you've ever seen? And this is including that he saw at Willie Thorne's, and he always says Lee Spick.
Oh yeah.
Sadly passed away. But and if you hear Selby and Sean Murphy from the same era, they just said they couldn't get near him, as a junior. Yeah, I know. Selby because when I moved to Leicester, he was about 17, so he's almost not quite a junior. I heard there was better juniors than Mark, but then obviously Mark's made up for it since.
Big time, yeah. And when did it start feeling like this is going to be a profession and you're going to take it very seriously?
I would say 13, 14. I felt like I was one of the best under 16 in the UK in the top 3 or 4. So yeah, I always saw myself as being professional. Hopefully as soon as possible, which was like 16.
It, was it when you were playing at Butlins and it was first time having a go on the snooker table? How
Yeah.
quickly were you making sort of 20s? Were you making it? You one of these people who just doing it straight away?
The first that week I did have a 28 break. The first week I was playing, but that was I played pool for about 2 years, but obviously I was that small that I couldn't even put the yellow on the spot. I had to put with my cue the yellow on the spot, so that's how small I was. So that was probably for the first year or so. Yeah.
Wow. And yeah, so what were the processes then? I guess it was just regional tournaments, national tournaments. I don't know if you were playing in international tournaments as a junior.
I went to a few when I was 15 or 16. I went with my dad to the World Under 21s in New Zealand. Actually, couldn't go much further. But that was like a level above, as in who was in it. The semi-finals was Ding against Neil Robertson and Mark Allen and a guy called Lou Song. But yeah, it was a strong field. But Neil, it was World Under 21s, but Neil, I think, was about 21 and about 9 months. So, I was only about 15, I think. Yeah, I was about 15. But I won the European Under 19 in Latvia. So when I fell off the tour, I got back on, through that route. So yeah, I only went to about 2 or 3 sort of European or world events.
Cool. Was that when you went to that one in New Zealand? Was that sort of scary to see the standard, or did you love it?
No, I loved it. I felt like I could get, I was realistic. I think I could get to maybe possibly. I think I lost in the last 16, maybe, but I didn't think I could get any further than the quarters. Like I just felt like there was 4, 6 players who were too good for me in that tournament.
Putting my newspaper hat on, are you basically branding Neil Robertson a cheat? Is that what's happening? Effectively, you're effectively branding Neil Robertson a cheat. Of course not. We won't run with that. We mentioned some famous names already. I mean, one that we haven't said yet is Judd Trump. I mean, he must have been around what you say. Wow. I mean, he was stunning, wasn't he? I mean, tiny bit of a different age to you, not much. So he'd have been very much a big player, wouldn't he? Then on the junior scene.
Yeah, Judd's about 2 years younger than me. And I still remember a match, even though it's all those years ago, because I got a lot of stick in the club from like loads of the juniors and players. So I was 12/13 and he was 10 years old. And in the best of 7, he had 4 breaks over 70 at 10. I'm like you get loads of people do that 14, 15, but not at 10. I've never, because when we were juniors, I was a couple of years older. I would say I at least had a 50-50 or probably a winning record against Judd. But that was only because he was 12, 13 and I had that little bit of advantage. And then I had Jamie Cope, who was 2 years older, and he was, too good for both of us, really. But obviously, it's just because he was older. So, but yeah, Judd, just exceptional. I don't think you'll see anyone at that level at 10 years old. Personally, again.
I see. I know you're throwing it forward an immense amount, but are you already thinking then he's going to take the snooker world by storm one day, this guy?
You don't really think of that when you're younger, but you do admit, well, it's hard to admit because you want to think you're better than him, but you do think, wow, he is special, even at that age. Yeah.
Right. So tell us then about turning pro and maybe your early days as a pro. That must have been a very significant step up.
Yeah. I think I was 16 stroke 17, but it just wasn't as exciting as it is if you turn professional now. I just had 6 tournaments, all at Pontins in Prestatyn, just behind closed doors. And I think I started one year in October, one of my qualifiers, and my season was over in January. So what they used to do then is with the World Championship, they used to play all the rounds in January and then play the last round in March, 2 months later, because the top 32 players complained that those players had an advantage because they were like match sharp. Even though the top 32 are starting in the last round, so that's an advantage anyway. But then they, moved all the qualifying for the World Championship was in January, and then 2 months later they'd just play one round to get to the Crucible. But yeah, it was just the first year. I know I fell off, but there was about 6 tournaments. I'm not sure how many matches I won. I felt like I did better in my second year as professional. I think I was probably 18 or 19. I remember my first TV match as well.
Oh, that's my question. What was it?
Oh, yeah. It was against Stephen Hendry.
Oh, wow.
At the time, I was thinking I was pretty good. I'd won 4 matches to get to Stephen Hendry. I played David Gray, who was top player then as well. Yeah. And against Hendry, I thought if I hold myself together and it's on TV table, first TV match, I've got a good chance. And then I soon realised I didn't really. I remember he had 3 total clearances, and I was just watching him, and just the strut he had and the swagger around the table. Until you're sitting in your chair, you don't really see it on TV. The sort of aura he had around the table.
Yeah,
so that was still special though. I lost 5-2. But didn't actually play that bad. I was reasonably happy the way I played for my first match on TV. So.
What an early education!
Yeah,
I wonder how many have had those that top level, or Ronnie, I guess another one like Hendry. Would there be 3 or 4 like that? How many would have that unbelievable next level aura?
Yeah, don't know. I think just Ronnie and Hendry really. It's just I think their walk and what they bring, to snooker. I've played all the players, but yeah, I think Ronnie and Hendry especially, you do feel something different, especially the first time you play them. But then, you try to get out of your mind for the second time.
Well, you've beaten Ronnie a couple of times, haven't you? Have a look at your career now. You beat him in Gibraltar a few years ago. The thing I was right in saying it was the Gibraltar Open. You beat him.
Yeah.
Back to Phil in a moment. One more for me. Players Tour Championship win in 2011. Now that was significant, and you were the scourge of the Scots. You beat Alan McManus, Anthony McGill, and Graham Dodd. They probably didn't let you north of the border for a while after that.
Yeah, that was that's another sort of interesting story because I wasn't doing well at that time in snooker, not brilliantly, and me and Tatiana had got married in June, and this tournament was in August. So I had to leave her about a week after the wedding, and she needed to sort all her visa stuff out to get to the UK. Really complicated process. But I knew she was coming 6 a.m. to Luton the day after that final. So I was just delighted she was coming. So I think that helped me in that tournament because I wasn't that bothered what was going on. I wanted to win, obviously, but I would have, when I lost, I was happy that I was just going to the airport. So I think we might have finished the final about 10 or 11 p.m. and then it was in Sheffield. So I just drove straight to Luton and met her, 6 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you think those, because they are ranking titles, do you think they're a bit underplayed, those? Because they're very difficult to win, those tournaments, weren't they?
Yeah, I know. I think I know another stat about that tournament as well. That's the most entries for a PTC as well.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody was in it.
Saw that.
Yeah, I class it. Yeah, they call it a minor ranking, don't they? But I think it's as big as like a championship league event, definitely, if not, more. Just because it's not a group, you can't lose a match or can't draw a match. It's just best of seven all the way through. But yeah, proud of that tournament win.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose they're like the Gibraltar Open, that counts, but there's no
Yeah,
real difference, is there?
not really. It's just a timing issue. I think just a couple of years later than these tournaments are classed as ranking event.
I know Tom Ford was, because he won a couple, I think.
He's won
And
two. Yeah,
yeah, when people said, "Oh, he's one of the best players not to win a ranking title," and he was very adamant that he has
yeah,
won ranking titles.
yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned your wife. Obviously, we've got to ask you about how did you guys meet and how did that come about? One of snooker's great love stories.
There's not many. um, we met in 2010 at the Paul Hunter Classic in where was it? Firth, yeah, in Firth. So yeah, we met. We went out. I don't know how that happened. I was with another friend, and she was with another referee friend, and we were just walking and just said, should we get something to eat?" And then we just spoke. Just spoke there. And then when a couple of days later, when she was leaving, I remember hearing a story about Andy Murray, and it's like the same thing that he gave his wife his email address. I remember him saying this a few months ago, and I gave my email address to Tatiana, and then we kept in contact. And a few months later, I was over to Belarus. So,
Amazing. So then you were married, what, the next year?
yeah, we were married in about 10 or 11 months. Yeah,
Wow.
it was quick. Yeah, I went because at the time I didn't feel like I was as busy with snooker. So I went in December, just before Christmas. I went again in February, went again in March. And then, yeah, we both thought, this best way to be together is, get married.
Amazing. And what's Belarus like? Do you enjoy it over there?
I love it, honestly, especially the capital, Minsk. Everyone just has heard of Minsk if they've watched an episode of Friends, because it's just always mentioned. But I'd never heard of it, to be honest, except for that. But the first time I went, I remember landing and the pilot saying it's 24 degrees below zero. And that's quite an experience. So yeah, no, I've never seen snow like that. Just a couple of feet high all the way down the road. But we went again last year to Minsk. We haven't been for a few years. It's obviously really difficult to get there now. You have to fly through Lithuania and cross the border, and it's just, it's difficult, but it is worth it when you get there.
Yeah. And how is managing sort of dual snooker schedules? I guess your mum is called on quite a lot to look after the kids.
Yeah, without my mum, it just wouldn't be possible. Especially for Tatiana, for the refereeing. But really, it's when we're away together. The World Championship's the hardest for my mum because my kids are off school for Easter always. So it couldn't be at a worse time, really. The World Championship, but we're probably only away together, I would say, about 4 weeks a year. I think not loads, but the World Championship, Tatiana's always away for a couple of weeks.
Well, it's brilliant. I was saying off air, just of course, Tatiana had a special career moment, didn't she? Only a few months ago when she refereed her first Triple Crown final. I saw you all there as a family. A plick plug for me. Tatiana very kindly spoke to me only about an hour before the second session, which is very typical of snooker, and you can hear that on Radio Snooker. So, yeah, you really are obviously, Phil jokes about a love story, but, a delightful snooker couple. And Ben, We're going to talk more about snooker in a moment's time. First of all, we'll say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf and our brilliant special guest, Ben Woollaston. Well, Ben, you've talked about some hard luck stories to do with world qualifying, but of course your happiest moment ever was beating Ryan Day, wasn't it, 10-9 to get to the 2013 tournament. Having not really seen that match or remember too much about it, what sort of deciding frame was that one then? If you can remember
I remember I had quite a few centuries in the match, and I just remember one shot that I put a long red bridging over the green. It was one of those that I had no other choice really, and I probably wouldn't get that red very often. And I made a 60 or 70 break, I think. So it was all on this one long red, really. I remember that shot. It's funny. I don't remember any of the rest of the break, but I think I made 60 or 70.
Right. And you're, well known, as you say, for being just one of those snooker lovers. There's lots like you, quite a few like you on the tour, actually. You're just an absolute snooker nut. So had you been to the Crucible before you played? I imagine you probably had, knowing you.
Yeah. I've been to watch Selby make his debut there against John Higgins. I've probably been half a dozen times at least, probably more, maybe 10. Watched Mark. Well, actually, he won the World Championship after I'd been there, the year after, I think. But yeah, I've been to watch Mark quite a few times.
What was it like first there as a player? Did it match up? You played Ali Carter, didn't you? Was it overawing being out in the arena? Did it feel more comfortable than you thought? What was it like?
The strange thing is, I couldn't breathe for the first 4 frames. I just felt so nervous.
Doesn't sound that good, does it, Phil?
But played really well. I went 3-1 up, and I think I had 3 one-visit breaks. And then come back after the interval. I was 3-1 up and felt relaxed, and then just couldn't pot a ball. I started so well considering how nervous I felt, but then it was just disappointing. I lost a lot of bad frames and just didn't play the same from after the first interval.
Is that a level of nervousness that you had never experienced before?
Yeah, I've never ever felt that nervous. Never. Not even in when I got to the final in other tournaments and stuff. I've never felt that before. But I don't think I'll feel that bad again. I just think it was just new to me. Yeah.
So when did that start? Is that when you're like wait, the cameras on the players before they go out? Is it then you start feeling it?
Normally the wait before the match, 10, 15 minutes is bad, but I just remember just not being able to breathe. So, but I can see from players now, when they're nervous and stuff, like even Ronnie, I can see that even though he makes out he's cool as a cucumber and he doesn't feel any nerves, but you can see when he's gasping for air sometimes.
Mm. Was that almost a scary feeling then? You started to worry that you can't breathe.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like I'd be able to do anything. But it's weird how well I played at the beginning, and then come back and felt okay when I come back. Didn't really, I don't know. I think it was just the anticipation and event, being able to play there.
So do you look back at it fondly now? Did you enjoy the experience, or was it a bit of a blur?
I think I do. I did really enjoy the first session. I was 6-3 down. I think I should never. I probably should have been in front, to be honest. Didn't enjoy the second session at all. Just because I think I just lost like black ball games, re-spied blacks. Just had loads of chances, but just didn't take them.
And then 2 years later, we're in a final. We mentioned the final so far in Wales. What a run! Did you feel something coming there, or was that out of the blue?
No, I didn't. I lost a qualifier a couple back on the Friday or Saturday. Wasn't going there in good spirits at all, to be honest. I remember my first match was against Mark Davis. I won that and played quite well. And then once you win a match in snooker, you forget about that bad match. The further I went on, I did believe, I was going to go further and further because I did play really well in a lot of matches that week.
Yeah, Mark Allen, Ali Carter, Gary Wilson, Mark Williams. That is a
Yeah,
tricky old run you got through that.
yeah. I don't even remember the Gary Wilson match. I remember quite a few of the matches. I remember obviously the one I remember most is against Mark Williams, just because it was a really big crowd, probably the biggest crowd I've ever played in front of. Because not sure exactly. There was more than there was at the Crucible, and obviously it was just one table, and it was in Wales. Against a legend, and to win in decider as well was that is one of my one moment that I remember the most. Yeah.
Was it sort of aggressively on his side? What were they like, the crowd?
Oh,
It was in
no,
Cardiff that year, was it?
yeah, it was in Cardiff. Yeah, yeah. No, it wasn't like playing Ronnie or Jimmy at the Masters or anything like that. It was no, they were fair, but they obviously supported Mark, but it was pretty, they weren't harsh at all.
And memories of the final obviously didn't go your way, but I mean that's a tough draw again. John Higgins in the final.
Yeah, it should. Well, snooker players love using the word should, but it should have been 4-4. I was 60 in front to go 4-4. And then I was 20. I only needed the green and had him snookered on the green. He fluked the green out the snooker, cleared up. And then it was 5-3. As soon as he won the first frame of the second session, 6-3, I think then I was playing, John Higgins. I probably didn't believe I was going to win then. I felt like I was completely in the match. 4-all, obviously he'd have still been probably favourite, but 5-3, and then once you lose the first frame of the session, 6-3, he's won a few tournaments, John. So he's been in that position a few more times. Yeah.
I'm not just saying it because you're on here. I genuinely remember that final really, really well. And we talk about the Welsh Open now as being the biggest of the home nation because of its history. But of course, there wasn't the home nations there. It was the year before. So the Welsh had even bigger prominence. And I remember it being on the telly, people like Terry Griffiths being part of the coverage that night. Really sort of big deal. And so great for you, of course, and to be in that match. I mean, sounds silly what felt different. I'm sure probably everything felt different. But was it the way you were introduced or just the whole gravitas of the TV coverage? What do you remember that really stood out about that day?
I actually don't. It's weird, obviously. I don't remember that day anywhere near as much as the semi-final. Obviously, probably tried to forget it because I didn't play as well. But it was special. One thing that I remember most is just having my eldest son now. He was there, and he come out to me. He was just 2 or 3. I remember that a lot. After the final and him being there during the day. But yeah, I remember Willie Thorne being really excited, and Selby actually brought down Tatiana. Tatiana, my son, and my mum. He brought them down in his car for the final. That was nice. They're what I remember more than the actual match. I remember the excitement of being introduced before the first session, and the second session in the evening, because it always seems louder than it in the evening for the final. I honestly don't remember a lot of the match, but it's quite special that John Higgins was always my favourite player from when I was probably 10, 11 years old. So to play him in the final, it's just weird how that happened, really.
Right. So it was John more than Ronnie.
Yeah. I was always at the club. John Higgins is the best, not Ronnie. And Selby was like, no, it's Ronnie, and I'm like, no, it's Higgins. Now I admit Ronnie, but just John was always my favourite because '98 was the first World Championship I watched properly. And obviously he won that, and the way he won it, it was, I remember a lot about that.
Yeah. And what's it been like getting to know him? I mean, he's a everyone says what a good guy he is. He always comes across like that to us. What's he like as a man?
He's fantastic. Yeah, we were having a coffee in Starbucks in Yushan just a couple of weeks ago. Because during the day in Yushan, there's not loads to do, so we just sit in there for like 3 hours, just having one cup of coffee. So, um, yeah, he was saying, "Are you in the Grand Prix?" And I said, "No, no. I'm 34 in the list. I've been told though that Hussein might not get his visa." So what he said, this is what the sort of guy John is. Before his final against Joe O'Connor, he's texted me. It was about midnight local time. He's texted me to say, Ronnie's pulled out. Are you in? And I'm like, no, no. I've been told Hussein's got his visa. So then after the final against Joe O'Connor, that about 24 hours later, he's texted me, have you had a call? And I said, is John winding me up? I've just told him yesterday, no, Hussein's got his visa. And what I found out afterwards when I got to Hong Kong was Stephen Maguire. Obviously, John and Stephen Maguire are close. He knew that Stephen Maguire probably won't go, so that's why he was saying, "Have you had the call?" But he said, "I couldn't tell you, Ben. I couldn't tell you, but because I've been sworn to secrecy about Maguire. But I was just asking, But it's weird that he's like texting me. I think before the final and after the final, when most people wouldn't be texting me that.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting little story there. Yeah, I like that. It says quite a lot about him, doesn't it? And it says a lot about, maybe the sport and you guys all together type thing. Before I forget, I want to ask a little, just if that's okay, ask a bit more about Woody Thorne, the late Willie. I mean, he was extraordinary, wasn't he? I mean, as a character, funny. It's always, as people say, he was so funny. He always had the killer line. He'd say outrageous kind of thing. Who was the most famous person here before I walked in the room? That kind of thing, that kind of vibe. Yeah. I mean, tell us about him.
So when I moved to Willie Thorne's, I was 12, 13, like I said. So he was in the club. I think he retired in 2002, maybe. So he was in the club quite a lot for the first couple of years I was there. And the memories I just remember him is just being on his old Nokia phone with his with his earpiece, and he just always used to answer the same thing: the Great WT. He didn't say hello or anything. He just said the Great WT. So that was the same thing. It didn't matter if it was his mum, a call centre. It'd be the same line. But he was always on his phone, always. Yeah, but yeah, he's just an amazing character. Honestly, amazing.
That is brilliant. The Great WT, every phone call, yeah?
Yeah, every phone call.
Wonderful stuff. That really is great. That's lovely. He really was an incredible character, much missed by everyone, I think, that's involved with snooker. I feel a bit bad that we're going to sort of change tack now and talk about a rather sadder match. I mean, of course, the years went on, and you certainly picked up a number of sort of notable results and some runs. I think you reached the Championship League final. I think that famous one, the first one
after COVID.
Yeah, when COVID came in. But then, of course, things did take a turn for the worse for you, didn't they? Health-wise. I mean, tell us the story. You're pretty sure you know how it started, aren't you?
Yeah. I remember it was 2 days before my birthday. It was May the 12th, 2021. I had a vaccine, COVID vaccine. Tatiana had it at the same time as me. And they told you to wait in a room for 15 minutes, but most people don't. They just go. But I did wait. And then after about 5 minutes, I just said, I just feel really sick. And I just started sweating. And I thought I was going to be sick. So I tried to run to the toilet. I just passed out in the corridor. So it's the first time I've ever passed out before. So after that happened and I nearly passed out again, I stayed at the place for about an hour. They checked me over, and then I went home. But at the time, I just thought, that'll be the end of that. I just didn't expect to feel that bad for so long after that. I'm actually the first 6 months after that, which I was almost just in bed 18, 20 hours a day, and just couldn't stand up without feeling like I'm gonna, pass out again. It has been better the last year. The last year it's been a lot better, but actually since I've actually come back the last couple of weeks, I'm still having sort of bad spells. Not to how I was, but I've never felt perfect in the whole time. I've just never got loads of energy, and I get just sort of lightheaded, quite a lot of lightheaded spells, and weak legs and stuff. But yeah, I'm for the 2 years after that vaccine, I just never thought I was going to feel half normal again, to be honest. So yeah, it was a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it during that spell, I think, or near the end of that, and
Yeah,
obviously practice became impossible, didn't it? And just it was very, I mean, when you're explaining it like that, it was difficult just to get through the day, I suppose.
yeah,
Never mind worrying, trying to beat a world-class player on the snooker table must have been extremely hard.
yeah. So like I said, the first 6 months. So I did it in May. For whatever reason, in the end of November when the UK Championship was on, for about a week before that, I wouldn't say I felt well, but it was the first time I'd practiced for maybe an hour or 2 hours a day for 6 months. So I played nearly every day for that week. At that time, I was very close to falling off the tour. I went down to about 64 in the rankings end of season. So I remember having Rory McLeod in that tournament and thinking I just need to win that match, get 6,500 ranking points, and then hopefully I'll get better in a few months. But that will just see me through another couple of months. So I won that match. It was an awful match, really long, just tough. And then I got to the last 16 somehow in that tournament. No idea how, because I won the first match, and then I played Bing Tao in my second match, who's obviously was, I don't know where he was, maybe 10 in the world, thinking I've got just no chance whatsoever. And played one of the best matches I've ever played as a professional. So, but yeah, it just really hard period for the 2 years, especially not just for me, but for Tatiana and the boys, because I just couldn't do anything with them, nothing. So, yeah.
And I imagine the nature of it. uh, I don't know if you had any treatment or anything. It was probably quite scary to think. I don't know if you saw an end to it.
The most not an annoying thing, but I went in and out of hospital a lot. I remember being so nervous about having a blood test because I've never had a blood test, and then I don't know why I was so worried, to be honest, after, but at the time when you've not had one. But the most frustrating thing for me was I almost wanted them to tell me what was wrong. So the most frustrating thing was not getting anything back, having MRI scans, checking, because I also had problems with my sort of chest and heart, just always fluttering and getting pains. But yeah, they just never gave me, no. One doctor, that's how it started, said that I've got chronic fatigue or ME, but I'm not sure how he said that because that was actually over a video call. I was just explaining everything I got. And then I was like, well, maybe I do, but, I don't know if I do. I do believe 100% it started from the vaccine, but maybe it triggered, something in me that was possibly always there, I'm just guessing, but a bit like the doctors, because it was hard for them because it's probably all new to them if it was the vaccine and possibly what it did or, didn't do. So yeah, the most frustrating thing for me was getting nowhere. Just kept going in for checks and scans, but not getting anything back from them.
And you never got an answer further down the road or
No,
anything.
no, I probably went in there. I don't know. Probably went a dozen times in 2 years for different things. And then at one point, even though I wasn't pretty better, I just sort of gave up because I wasn't getting anywhere. There was nowhere else to check in my body really. So
And I suppose, I mean, I don't know if it's a part of it. I mean, I guess when you're going through something like that yourself, you don't care about the politics of it and stuff like, but it's quite a sort of a touchy subject, isn't it? I don't know if people find it difficult to talk about.
yeah, I'm not one of those like um, people that always shouting about it's bad about the vaccine and stuff like that. It was obviously it was bad for me, in my case. Um, but yeah, I'm not one to keep going, on about it. And, there's a lot of negative things definitely on social media about it. Some of it might be true, some of it probably isn't. But, you just got to get on with, your own life. And yeah, just hopefully, because I still know I'm not where I was, just because I just know I just can't do certain things. I just can't do anything active. I can go for a walk or something, but there's no way that I, could play. I tried to play football with the boys for like 10 minutes, and I'm not even running, but I feel like maybe it's something wrong with my chest or heart because as soon as that raises, that's when I normally feel bad. So
Yeah.
if I play with the boys for 5 or 10 minutes, I might have to lie down for an hour. So that's pretty tough. Even now, that is. So, but I have been practicing with people for like the last year
Mhm.
because I played Selby in practice for the first time, since COVID, probably 6 months ago. Because I never wanted to play, arrange a game and then after an hour saying I can't play. That was the thing that I didn't want to do. So, the last year I've been pretty confident I can play someone for the full day. So that's a positive, definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, the way you're describing that, struggling to play with your children and stuff, is that's not only the illness itself, that's such an extra psychological thing to be
Mm.
going through. Must be, yeah, I mean, feel awful for you. It sounds like it must have been very difficult.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Still now, but I feel that I'm more. I try and be as engaging with them as possible, and I love doing that. But I mostly can. It's just I just can't do anything as active as I should be able to.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm personally really sorry for that as well. I know because I know I can tell just by your photos the way you are, what a massive family man you are, and of course
Yeah,
you still do loads of great things with them. But
yeah.
I can see in some ways it's prohibitive. I mean, you kind of already answered this already, I think. But is there no anger in you a bit about why that happened to me? No bitterness, and what about the rest of your family? Are they like that? Because if this, as you say, you're pretty certain. You talked about the symptoms. It
Yeah.
happened for the vaccine. Is there an element of anger in you?
There is, yeah, there is, in a way. But when I look back, I just think the whole COVID time just seemed crazy to me. Like now, at the time, it probably didn't because we didn't know what was going on. But when you look back at some of the things we were doing, it just seems because I only had the vaccine. I did not that I thought I ever needed it, but mainly for snooker, just because we were told if you don't have the vaccine, you can't go to any abroad tournaments. And then I thought, well, how bad can a vaccine be? Because I've not had a vaccine before for like going to any other tournament. I know some people have a vaccine to even go China, don't they? But I've never had anything like that. But yeah, I don't know. I've probably passed, anger really. Um, it was just sort of depressing, sad time, really.
And the doctors, that they obviously couldn't give you a proper name for what you had, or exactly what it was. They seemed to have been foxed. Am I right in thinking they also didn't necessarily agree it was from the vaccine? And does it matter to you they didn't? Does it matter to you that you can't be 100% sure on paper?
Yeah, it did annoy me a little bit, because I said, so if it's not from that, you tell me where it's from. Then from I'm perfectly healthy, and from that day, I was never the same. I would say it was like probably a third of the doctors I saw would say, no, I don't think it's from the vaccine, but
But 2/3 would say it was from that.
yeah, 2/3 would say, what else can it, they would say the same as me. Well, what else can it be? But then they wouldn't give me an answer. The only doctor that said, but that was actually from a video call, because he was like semi-retired, this guy. I can't even remember his sort of area, but there's only half a dozen of, the doctors in the country do what he does. And he was the only one that says, well, I think it's chronic fatigue. And that's how sort of the articles about me sort of stuck on that. See, when you read about chronic fatigue, because I read quite a lot about it, it just seems to cover everything, like literally every single thing.
Right.
So, but then there's similar to that. There's no real, cure for that, I don't think.
So just to clarify, I mean, if I remember rightly, we all sort of had to take a couple of vaccines first. This was the first, and you didn't bother doing it again?
Just the one, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, some doctors were like, well, most of the doctors were saying, well, obviously you don't have the second one. And then I remember having one doctor saying, no, I was like, you crazy? Like, you should have the second one. I was like, no.
Not doing that, no.
Yeah.
Would it put you off to having vaccines in the future?
To be honest, it probably will. Yeah. Because I just don't think you wouldn't think you'd feel that bad without, having it. I'd like to take my chance. I was never against the vaccine before, but obviously that has, I think it put most people off.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Well, we're really sorry about that. But listen, we're going to try and flip it around to a bit of a happier thing. As I understand it, you already sort of hinted at you are feeling better the last maybe year. And certainly this season, you feel like your snooker's getting back to where you want it to be to some extent.
Yeah. The other years, I'd say, it wasn't even close to 50%. I feel like I'm pretty close. Yeah, I would say pretty close, 70-80% to what, what I was. And it showed in results, because every year I've just been struggling away in the 50s and 60s. This year, I'm 30, I don't know, 32, 34, whatever way you look at it on the 1 year list. I felt like it could have been, to be honest, even better than that. You can always say that, but I don't think it could have been worse. It could have only been better. There's a few real close matches, or one match where I'd have been a lot higher. So that was always the aim, to try and get back in the 32, top 32, and hopefully next year, it'd be nice to get back there.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Phil may have one or two more questions. Just one more for me, really, about your future. I mean, I think it's probably going to be, you say you win a tournament, because most players want to do that. Maybe it's getting the Crucible again soon. Is there one overriding ambition that you want to do? You're a young man in snooker terms still. We know that now with the guys that are, again, what do you like to do more than anything else, Ben?
Yeah, I like the same as most players. I just like to win a tournament and just have my family there, really. Nothing else. Yeah, it'd just be nice to win what Anthony Hamilton always says, a proper ranking event where you go to bed before the final. That's always how he classes.
That's a great line.
Yeah, so you have to go to bed before the final, otherwise it's not a ranking final. like a two-session final, win one of them would be, I'd be happy then.
And I say this quite a lot on here because I'm really boring, but there's a group of players I think that sort of between 20 odd and you can get 40 odd in the rankings that if you can consistently be there, it's such an unbelievable standard of player that doesn't really get much recognition. And it's probably
Yeah,
only a bit of confidence, a bit of belief, and in your case, getting over this health
yeah,
issue that you can you can really make that step up. Someone like Zhao Guidong's proving it this season. You can just do it right at the top level. Do you
yeah.
feel like that is all it is? It's just a bit in the mental side of it that could change everything.
Yeah, I think it's just a bit of inspiration and that one amazing run, can change everything. Because Xiao Guodong is a good example. Probably similar, been around similar time to me, maybe slightly after when he come on the scene, but probably had maybe slightly better, but maybe had reasonably similar careers. He'd got to one final, been in the 32 few years, but like you said, between 20 and 45 for 10, 12 years. And then, now he's had an amazing 12 months. So, I guess for most players, it is just confidence and that one break where they do it and it just shows them in their mind that, they can do it again.
Mm. And I guess you must see people like that, or even someone like Lei Fan winning a tournament this season, way down the rankings. That must be inspirational for you guys who are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. No, nobody, not taking anything away from Lei Fan, but because he did amazing, but no one saw that coming. Probably, not himself, but the longer it went on, and maybe that will give him, belief to do better again. But that those sort of players winning that, I think gives everyone, like the mid-rank players, a boost that they can do it.
And final one for me, um, I love how much you love snooker. It always comes across whenever you're involved in anything, really. Can you encapsulate what that is? Is it the game itself? Is it the people around it? Is it everything?
Yeah, I think it's just the game because competitiveness of the game and knowing what players are going through, seeing them suffer, be happy because there's a lot of suffering in snooker. And then obviously that elation. But and with snooker, don't think maybe there's not really another sport that's so different so many times. There's never, it's a cliche, but there's never the same frame. And in other sports, there's always something similar that's happened. But snooker is not really like that. Everything's different. It's always a different occasion. So I think that's why, I'm always excited about any tournament or, any match because you really don't know exactly what's going to happen. You think you do. You think you've seen it all before, but there's always something new.
Mm-hmm.
That,
I think that's it from us, isn't it?
yeah, I think so. That every frame is different thing is not said enough. Thank you for saying
Yeah,
it. I sometimes get it inside my head, and it gives me sort of a mixture of thrill and sort of does my head in so much I have to stop thinking about it. The fact that every single frame I've ever watched is different. Wow,
yeah.
I just find that remarkable. Ben Woollaston, you've been an outstanding guest. You really have. Thank you so much. I know we
Thanks.
kept you longer than we said, but you've
That's
been
all right.
really entertaining and illuminating, and just so good. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And best of luck at the EIS.
Thanks. Yeah, hopefully it's a good year. Thanks.
Good man. I hope you
Yes,
have a good meeting in Manchester, and just thanks for your company so much, Ben, on this Monday evening here. And I hope everyone enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording. I'm sure you did because he was absolutely fabulous there, wasn't he? On so many different levels, Phil, and we're really grateful. What a lovely guest.
absolutely.
Thank
Yeah, no, it would be good. Um, and delivered duly. So much, many thanks to Ben.
Indeed.
Thank
Now, Phil, we've got quite a bit more to get through, haven't we, on this episode? And we're going to do that in a couple of moments' time when we say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. The Tour Championship, Phil, is underway in Manchester, and people have been joking with us to get the old video printer out. We'll do that, of course, but let's first of all say there's been a result. It's been a pretty extraordinary one. Ben's finally gone there. That put me on. it made me feel a bit nervous when he was still there. Did it you?
I was just waiting to see how long that was going to be, but that's fine.
He was on good form there, sort of wandering around his hotel room, thinking, just turn it off. Eventually, he did. Brilliant stuff. And he was wonderful. But I really enjoyed that. So sorry about his health problems, obviously, but wish him well, and it seems to be in a better place that clearly health wise and with his snooker this season, so that's great. But let's say, Phil, Barry Hawkins 10, Sean Murphy 1. I mean, what I'm thinking is it's a bit of a mad period in snooker for me. We had a 10-0 in the final. There's a lot of things, funny thing. Snooker's always a bit mad. Ben was talking there about it, every frame being different. You never know what's going to happen. But 10-1, Sean Murphy beaten. A guy that's been, Hendry said it, in Hendry's mind, the best player of this calendar year so far, Murphy, beaten 10-1. I mean, 5 centuries and 3 half centuries from Hawkins. So you have to say congratulations to Barry. What a start to the tournament.
Yeah, it was absolutely nuts. Yeah. I mean, Barry was incredible. I mean, he would have been the underdog for this game. So I don't know what price the bookies would have given you 10-1 Hawkins. Because Murphy's beaten him in previous 2 players in the Grand Prix. And as you said, he's been playing great all year. But yeah, that first session, Hawkins was unbelievable. There's not a lot Sean could do. He made a 90 odd to win the 3rd frame, and then he could have won the 4th. But he didn't score a point in a number of those frames. Hawkins was just, he looked like the best player in the world. I think in the second session, when it was basically over already, Murphy was a bit ragged. And then Hawkins got it done just absurdly quickly. But yeah, it wasn't a good day out for Sean. But you can only really praise Barry. He was stunning.
Yeah, good way of saying it. Don't need the video printer, Phil. There's no more play tonight this Monday night. I've had a look. And it's Ding Junhui leading Mark Williams 5-3. And that will come to a conclusion tomorrow night, Tuesday night. So loads of snooker left in that. That will be fascinating for us all to watch. And it's level pegging between Zhao Gudong and Wu Yisa. That's 4-4. That will come to a climax tomorrow afternoon, Tuesday afternoon. So loads of great snooker to come. That's just a little taste of the tournament there. And of course, we'll review it in full when we're back with you next week. You spoke to Mark Williams, haven't you? That's always an absolute pleasure for any of us journalists. And how glowing was he with his words about Ronnie O'Sullivan?
Oh.
I mean, it didn't, maybe some people, in fairness, I did take a little handful of what he put when I put on a tweet. Some people were like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But, listen, Mark's always been very, very praiseworthy of Ronnie. He says Ronnie's the one he paid money to see. It'll be a huge blow. I've been thinking about it in recent days, and I don't see how you could not say it'll be a huge blow. The show will go on, but if Ronnie O'Sullivan's in at the World Championship, to me, Mark Williams is right. It is ultimately a huge blow, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's not disastrous. We can still have a great World Championship without Ronnie O'Sullivan there, but yeah, of course you want him in there for obvious reasons. And yeah, he was. I thought Mark was brilliant speaking about Ronnie there. It was almost quite emotional, just the way sort of the lavish praise he was handing out on sort of an old rival. They've been duking it out for all these years, and he just holds him with such high esteem as a player. Obviously, but it's amazing to hear these guys talk about each other. Same with all those 3 when they speak about each other. It's just fascinating. And yeah, he was on really good form. I had a chat with him. He was talking about Michael Sabarchik. Remembered his name now. And I didn't even ask him about him. He brought that up himself because he'd been over in Turkey and he was blown away by how good he was. And I was a bit aware, you don't want to put too much pressure on these guys, these young guys coming through. And he's only 14, but to have, a legend of the game like Williams who'd watched him up close and personal and saying he was, not far away from what he saw from O'Sullivan when he was 14. And that's newsworthy lines there from Mark. So that was great. And yeah, he was really good on Ronnie, and he was really good on feeling very proud of himself for being number 5 in the world at 50 years old, as he quite rightly should.
Oh man, he very much should. I'm glad he's feeling that about himself. He deserves to, quite rightly. Going into his 6th decade then, still one of the best players in snooker, quite remarkable. The shootout's going to Blackpool. I just remember in my head, I just thought, did we say it or we say it off air? I think we said it off air with Ben Woollaston, didn't we? He was saying, before we came on, it's the best shootout venue, and sort of he was saying the best by a mile. So that's going to be good fun in December if you are going. Some people said to me, not another event in the north of England, which has got kind of a point as well, but it's a brilliant venue. It's Blackpool blows me away. I only go about once every 20 years. There's no place like that. I'm always completely thrown on about 5 or 6 different levels by Blackpool. I find it a quite extraordinary place. I really do. Even the stories I could give you just from my 3 or 4 visits, it's just a place like no other in Britain, really. So that's where it's going in December.
Yeah, it should be very entertaining. I've only been. I used to go as a kid. I've been to watch Barnsley there a couple of times, and it's a wild away day. The fans really do enjoy themselves when they go to Blackpool away. So yeah, it'll be interesting just before Christmas time. I'm sure it'll be rowdy. I have to get along to that one. It'll be entertaining.
Yeah, definitely a good way of saying it. And I'll tell you what we also saw that was entertaining, Phil, the British Women's Open final. On Years defended that title, beating Mink Nutcher 4-3 in the final at the Landywood Club in Walsall. We tell you about that final. On You went 3-0 up with breaks of 51, 50. I've done this, so I'm going to bloody do it. I know we're trying to get through it, but no way. 51, 54 and 69. But I want to. 69 break from On Ye. Then Mink came back for 3-3, really impressive. Onyi took a nervy decider. I saw a little bit of coverage of that. And that's 22 ranking titles in all for Onyi. That's quite something. Equaling the total of Stacey Hilliard to move into the top 5 most successful players ever on the WW list of tournament winners. And the full results on the World Women's Snooker Tour page. Mink Nutrat beat Chang Wei Yan 3-0 in the quarterfinals. On Yi beat So Man Yan 3-0. Break of 1-1-3 from On Yi there. Nurucha Fuempel beat Rhiann Evans 3-0. That's a very good win. And Rebecca Kenner beat Bai Lu 3-0. Then in the semis, Mink beat Kenner 4-0. Break of 64 in the opening frame of that from Mink. And On Yi beat Nurucha Fuempel 4-2. And she clinched victory with a break of 83. On Yi won the final 4-3. Sounds like another really good tournament. And 22 titles. That's first one, I think, back in 2012 I was seeing. So just a wonderful effort.
Yeah, superb. She's back on the main tour next season, and hopefully she'll come back a better player. She got a couple of good wins on her first stint there. Yeah, that's a superb amount of wins there. And it was interesting to see a new name. Usually we sort of can have a good guess at the semi-finals, but they were slightly different this time around. Narusha Fremful, I had a look up. She's only 19 from Thailand, so that's another exciting name to add to the business ends of these women's events. But yeah, congratulations on you. But superb stuff.
Well, Elise Scott's only 13, Phil. She won the under-21 title, beating China's Chan Wei Lam 2-0 in the final. Now, are you sitting down? Oh, I can see you are. Good stuff. Make sure you are out there. Now, this is going to come as a big surprise. Tessa Davidson has won a trophy. About time she put a bit of silver in the cabinet, Phil. She won the seniors title at the British Open, beating Deborah Fladgate 2-0 in the final. We had Tessa on here recently, which you can hear on our back catalogue, and she was great value. So congratulations to her. Good tournament being put on by all there at the Landywood Club. And what an event we got coming up, Phil. Well, I won't go as far as that hipster thing I refer it to the 17 days at the Crucible, but I do like it. I do like it, like everyone else. Underway next Monday, World Qualifying. Some of the earlier matches then. It's Zhao Xintong against Ka Wei Chung. Of course, Zhao making his tentative steps back into the game. He was, of course, one of the players to serve a ban for his involvement in the match-fixing scandal. Didn't throw a match himself, but accepted charges of being a party to another player fixing matches and betting on matches himself. But in a playing sense, people are thinking he'll still be a top player. Sure he will be. Jimmy White, Anton Kazakov. Hard to believe, Phil. I know a lot about Jimmy's whole history, but I thought I'd go back and look again. He played Steve in 81, Steve Davis in 81 at the Crucible. I mean, it's just incredible. About to turn 63 is Jimmy. I mean, That's just another lifetime ago, the 81 World Championship. Quite amazing. Rhiannon Evans has got Anthony Kowalski. The winner plays Shaq Surgery, I noticed, recent guest on here with us. Bayou Lu, Liam Highfield, Ken Doherty, Hayden Pinney, I like the look of. And one you flagged up, so I nicked it from you. Buxu Revez against Stephen Hallworth. That's a really good one. Such a big prospect, of course. Buxu Revez, 18 years old, against Hallworth, friend of the podcast. And I know you got into your I say crystal ball. That's not right. That's sort of it's a little bit right. You don't know what's going to come up, but you think there might be some amazing ones later on. It's hard to know because who knows what's going to happen before that. But I know we all love it. I know you particularly love qualifying, don't you? You may well get there. You tend to go there. It's a special event, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you can't be predicting too much, but you do look at potential Judgment Day matches, and Gilbert versus McGill was one. Just
Ooh,
they're big time Crucible players, former
yeah.
semi-finalists who'd be could be duking it out on Judgment Day, but obviously all sorts could happen before then. But yeah, some great games. I mean, that Revenge Allworth one is interesting because the winner plays Hamilton in the next
Oh
round,
yeah.
which could there's guys in here, Hamilton and Perry and Dale, that every match could be their last pro match. So it's going to be must see stuff. I may well go along just as a punter for some of these games and just get stuck in the crowd because there's some fascinating stuff. But yeah, huge names lurking about. Um, Other potential Judgment Day ones again. You don't want to get too too predicty, but Walden and V. Lasowski, Milkins Vivify. It's just great stuff. Yuan Sejun against Zhou Yulong would be one. Just obviously very high quality. And there's a few names not in this draw because we're not sure on the seedings yet because they're just down to seed 17, seed 20 odd and stuff. Because Wu Yize is still in the tour championship, so he can change things about. He can still make it to a seed if he gets the final of the tour. He can pinch a seeded place and knock Jack Jones out. But we'll have to wait and see for that. But yes, plenty to look forward to at the qualifying as always.
Very much so. Yeah, I recommend you try and do that. I go as a punter to the English Open, and yeah, while I've got like most people, a few issues with Brentwood, really, generally, I quite like going as a punter. I quite like that sort of experience, really. I always get sort of everyone sort of, what are you doing that for? I said, well, I just like it. Wouldn't do it if it cost an absolute fortune. Don't get me wrong, but it's a nice little value. And I just like being in the sort of crowd, and I just like chatting with the fans around me. Frankly, get sort of interesting angles and what they're thinking about. Let's move on, Phil. We promised to catch up with correspondence. Let's do that. We've got Alex Upham in Bath. Hi there, gentlemen. I hope you're well. I'm a regular listener to the pod, but I'm reaching from a slightly different place. I started a new podcast, the Snooker Therapy Podcast, exploring the therapeutic benefits of snooker. This is a different angle discussing benefits that some or many professionals might no longer feel. Obviously, the recent mental health discussion by Mark Selby and Ronnie O'Sullivan highlighted the challenges faced by professional sportsmen and women. However, for many at grassroots level, playing snooker is therapeutic in a number of ways. Feel free to give it a listen and a shout out to raise awareness. That would be wonderful if at all possible, please. It's available on most of the podcast platforms, including on Spotify and Apple. Keep up the good work. Many thanks, Alex. Yeah, you sent us a few weeks ago, Alex. We're just sort of only now catching up with all our correspondence. Best of luck with that. It's a fascinating angle, no question. We wish you well. And I did say, well, it was tempting to sort of say I said this on social media, tempting to say that I often need therapy because of snooker, but that's flippant. That's not the right way to go about it. The right way to say is that genuinely is interesting. And of course, I know that on many levels, even myself, yeah, playing it, I wish I played it more actually, but certainly watching, I said so many times that it calms me. I love that element to it. I love the relaxant of it all. I have a very busy mind. Snooker does it, and snooker does it naturally. I don't have to sort of. When I say I was going back to watch some snooker, and I won't have to work at it and think, oh, I have to get myself really relaxed at it. It just does it. That's what the beauty of it. I absolutely love it. So that's just one little tangent for me. But yeah, I'm sure Alex will do a brilliant job. It's new snooker listening, and we do wish him all the best, Phil.
Sure, yeah, no, I gave it a listen. It was very interesting. And yeah, and I think it's sort of you're right, Nick. I think everyone who likes snooker will see it as sort of therapy in some way, in some level. But yeah, no, that was a great idea, and yeah, there's so much snooker listening now, and it's great to have. We're probably at a stage with Snooper podcasts now where you're unlikely to be able to listen to all of them in a week that come out. And well, you can, but you might not be able to. But and that's a great spot to be in. That's a good thriving scene that we're very glad to be a part of. I'll move on to Brian Campbell. Dear Nick and Phil, many congratulations on reaching the milestone of 200 episodes. It's an absolute pleasure listening to the podcast each time in the company of two fantastic guys like yourself. Thank you very much, Brian. I read Richard Mann's piece regarding the World Championships on Sporting Life website recently, and I have to say I've barely disagreed more with any article in my life. First of all, he equates snooker to the tennis and golf calendar incorrectly, in my opinion. Um, Sorry. There's a reason why Wimbledon is played when it is, the weather and the light. I don't think it's because players are fresher, as the article is making out. I don't agree with the notion of playing the Worlds in December either. All of a sudden, snooker would be in strong competition with the World Darts, which is now cemented in the public consciousness in the UK as part of the run-up to Christmas. Richard also ignores two things, the BBC coverage and the qualifiers. It's highly unlikely the BBC would show as much coverage of the Worlds in December. Snooker in the UK would lose vital exposure. In addition, when would the qualifying tournament be played? At present, the qualifiers are becoming bigger and bigger with Judgment Day a couple of days before the Crucible starts. It all adds to the drama and excitement of the Worlds being just around the corner. If we start shifting the Worlds, we lose the climax of the season where everything builds towards this special event for players and fans alike. Richard also equates winning the trophy with finding the best in the world, but that's not always been the case. In the 80s, when there were fewer tournaments, you still got Dennis Taylor and Joe Johnson winning, but there's no way you would have said they were better players than Steve Davis. So the best players being tired due to too many tournaments argument doesn't quite stack up. Another argument against this is a quick look at the calendar. The Tour Championship finishes this year on the 6th of April, so apart from the finalists of that, the top 16 have a good couple of weeks off before the Crucible. Surely that's adequate time to rest and prepare for the Worlds. I couldn't believe what he said about Luca Bracell's triumph being down to big pockets. I don't recall anyone mentioning the pocket sizes that year. That's so disrespectful to a player who played a brand of snooker which was an absolute joy to watch in clinching snooker's biggest prize. Once again, congratulations on 200 episodes. Here's to the next 200. Kind regards, Brian. Well, big shots fired at Richard Mann there. Well argued by Brian. I must say, I wasn't persuaded into moving the World Championships either. But yeah, it was an interesting article though. I did enjoy reading it, despite also disagreeing with it.
Yeah, and I think we've gone over, and not just because it's a marathon, but we have all gone over our views on this already. So, a few weeks ago. I like it in its slot now, but look, I do think that's very well argued, and I think Richard is a terrific voice of snooker. The more discerning listeners, or maybe not even that discerning, will say, "Wait a sec, you're a colleague of his," and I am to some extent. Might have a ad hoc relationship with Sporting Life, but trust me, I would say Richard was a great voice long before my involvement with Sporting Life, which dates about 5 years now. And if they have no room for me in the future, I'll be saying Richard Mann's a strong voice as well, just to say. But I love working alongside Richard. I thought he argued it very well. I will say, well, so old ground. I do think the whole burnt out thing is very interesting. Now, I've seen people say, well, it's 2 weeks after the tour, that should be enough. Yeah, maybe. Look, I want to keep nearly all my World Championship piece for Kyle Ross a secret, but there is one little thing that he was telling me, which I think he may have said, I don't think this is a particularly new thing. He was talking to me about a holiday he took last year. And I sort of, I'm not sure it was a foolish mistake, but I sort of said to him, oh, well, could you do that again now? He said, well, I'm not sure I was anywhere near Manchester. Of course, the difference was he wasn't at the Tour Championship last year. But I said to him, well, could you not squeeze one in after Manchester? And I think he was sort of saying, well, it's a bit close, really. The point is, last year, he got a great holiday in, but he talks to me for the piece about how relaxed that made him feel and different. And I thought, yeah, there is something in that. Players so often say that's the point of Richard's piece, I think. Players do say they go into it really burnt out. And Richard's, well, they won't be burnt out in December, January. Do we want all the players to be burnt out? So there is something in it. I wasn't persuaded either, but, it's not a flyer out of nothing from Richard. And I thought he did argue it really well. But listen, you also make good points, Brian. And I love the climax element. That's what we have perfectly in snooker. Climaxes work well in sport generally, don't they? Be it in football, the various cup finals, the Champions League final, NFL with the ultimate climax of Super Bowl. Sports that have those work well. Now, I know every sport is slightly different. We have loads of brilliant tournaments, but to have the biggest one at the end, I think is a bit of a tonic and does work well for us all generally. But listen, I thought it was well argued. Let's move on, shall we? And say thank you to you, Brian. You're always a great friend of this podcast. Stephen Hughes, actually strong acquaintance. He's not been on. Very strong. Stephen Hughes. Hi, Phil Nick. Not sure if this is a moan, question, observation, but would love your view. We often mix those three together with one sentence, don't we, Phil? Moaning and observation and question. I'm sure this has annoyed me in previous years, but what is the deal with Players' Championship scheduling? First semi-final on a Friday night, second semi-final on a Saturday night. What's that all about? Surely not fair for either player. So Kyron got the whole of Saturday off, whereas Judd played on the Saturday night and then the final on the Sunday. I don't like the whole 1 p.m, 7 p.m. sessions either. Why are they like that? I go to the Scottish Open each year, but always stay over. If it was 10 a.m. and 4 p.m, I wouldn't need to. I do wonder why it's timed the way it is. Love the podcast. Take care, Stephen. I mean, I'll answer that the way I've always understood it is because of racing, actually. I was always told that. It may have changed. If anyone wants to contact me from ITV and say, no, this is another reason now, then please do so. But I was always told they like to make room for racing. Now, I'm always one of those people. I do love all sports. I really do. So for me, racing is a big slot Saturday afternoon. That's also important that it takes pride of place. And, you know, if people at ITV or in the television world think that having snooker on would distract people away from the racing that tends to be on a lot on ITV4, then, you know, they want to make that the slot. And don't forget, of course, you know, snooker for that week will have been on all week, whereas racing sometimes has midweek, but mostly will just be on the Saturday afternoon that week. It's the biggest slot for racing that week, so it is important. But I don't think it's always the case anyway, that like this week will have Saturday afternoon play, won't it? Because of the nature of it, I think. Unless I'm wrong, maybe I wouldn't swear by that now. I'm going to see your face, not sure either. So,
no, I think it must do because they're all 2 sessions, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm thinking it must do, but I'm not. Not all the ITV. I mean, mixed doubles has Saturday afternoon play, so not every ITV event. We haven't got the mixed doubles this year, much to my chagrin. But when that's been on, but some of them do. I do accept that. Champion of the Champions is one that always seems to have the Saturday afternoon off. But again, that's a massive time in the jump season, November. Jumps racing. So, you know. The other one, I don't really know the answer. I'm gonna guess it's television. I mean, television won't want not prime time, will they? You know, I know the BBC like going big in the afternoon and stuff with it being live when they do the Masters, for example, and the other tournaments like the UK as well. But I think, you know, ITV or Eurosport, whatever, that wouldn't wash with them to have 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. They want the evening when people are working and watching. That would be my guesstimate there. But I do understand that, you know, financially you'd rather go on the day and not always stay over. So I get your complaint, but I think it's probably telly. And I guess people, you know, the wisest out there will say telly pays the bills, Phil.
Well, yeah, telly and tickets as well. I mean, if all the sessions were at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m, it's been midweek, you'd have to have days off work, wouldn't you? So not sure the tickets would go so well if that was that, although I do understand the point, but doesn't sound like a goer particularly. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, when we're watching snooker well past midnight, you do wonder why they don't start earlier sometimes. But, you know, they do want to attract people in of an evening. So I guess that's why. We'll move on to Tony. Why is that's quite an interesting point? Why is Kyron Wilson trying to be somebody he isn't? He's obviously a good guy, but all these funny walk-ons and odd comments he's making in interviews aren't necessary. Just let your snooker do the talking, Kyron. Well, that's Tony speaking, not me, of course. Don't know if he's trying to be somebody he isn't, but I think he is trying to sort of provide a bit of entertainment value. Which there's nothing wrong with that, is there? I don't think. You know, the walk on and stuff. He's not going out doing anything absolutely mental, is he? He's just trying to sort of provide a bit of social media entertainment, bit of you know, bit of enjoyment for people. And it won't be everyone's cup of tea. And I think that's a brave thing to do because he'll know full well that some people will dislike it, but some people might like it, and that's good. Yeah, I think the funny walk-ons and stuff are just trying to make people laugh. That's what's wrong with that. I think the odd comments in interview, I've sort of said before on here, I think he's not a natural sort of speaker, and he sometimes will say things not wrong, but they just come across not quite how he intends, I think. But that's not an intentional thing. But yeah, no, I mean, I like it when sports people try and get some personality across, and you don't have to like what they're doing. But you can like their efforts, whether it really floats your boat or not, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, can't add a lot more to that. I mean, I remember it well because I was there, but that thing in Germany when he was, and this is no good. I bet, of course, not just an audio service now. So for the people that watch on YouTube, you know, the old Dern, all that, and they're coming down. Some people didn't like it. They sort of went half man about it. Say, oh no, what's he doing? This is rubbish. I mean, I just it didn't last more than about a minute. Again, I didn't really bother me too much. I think he is. I think he has made some sort of conscious effort to. I mean, I've heard him say. I think he said it to me. You know, help to attract the youth or help to, you know, boost not just his profile but the profile of the game maybe. And he's world champion. He feels he can do that. There's a lot of talk about Kyron at the moment. The way I see it is, I said this on social media. I think Monique Limbo wrote in that sort of prompted me to say it. I think the idea for some people he's had this massive radical personality transformation is for the birds, really. I mean, I speak to Corin a fair bit. He's pretty much the same person.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, do you agree? You speak to him a fair bit. I mean, slight nuances, but not really. He's kind of quite shy a bit, I think, at times, and he's just a nice, rounded human, really. Who's brilliant at snooker, and you know, is doing his best to sell the game. Listen, 3 or 4 people have put this brilliantly recently. And I maybe me included, we're all a bit demanding, aren't we? Like when Luca won it, oh, he's not doing enough. That was it. Oh, he should be selling it more. Why is he not around more? Why is he not doing more media stuff? Now, Kyle, he's doing too much. He wants, you know, we're never quite happy, are we? We seem to be quite demanding of these guys. Yeah, no, maybe I'm one of those that's sometimes demanding as well. But yeah, I don't. To me, he really isn't that different. You know, the way he talks. I didn't like the Masters thing about the family. We said that. That was a bit of a funny comment. But really, as we said so many times on here, the amount of interviews, we said it in relation to Sean Murphy recently, the amount of interviews they give these guys, and Ronnie even, to be fair, of course they're going to slip up and say the odd funny thing here and there. I mean, you know, they're just ordinary people, as I heard Mark Allen say a little while ago. Oh, yeah, that's normal humans, really. Just had to be very, very good at something and among the best in the world at it. You know, maybe a bit word from you again. I don't think he's changed that much.
No, and he's trying things, but he did sort of this before. And do you remember the shootout when he came out with all different gloves on, and one was like an oven glove,
Yeah.
and he was just, he's just messing about. Really, he was just trying to have a laugh, and I mean, if you hate that, then fine, but like, it's not the end of the world. But no, I don't think he's changed or is trying to be something he isn't. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a bit out of his comfort zone, but he feels like he should be just trying a couple of things. But yeah, I think it's fine to see people do things that you think that okay, I don't love that, but it doesn't mean you dislike them. I remember thinking this once watching a UFC fight, and a fight came out for a title match, and he came out with some of his mates, and they'd done like a pre-routined dance, which is all very impressive, but it just wasn't my cup of tea at all before a big fight, doing this quite sort of routine performance on the way in. But at the same time, I thought, oh, it's quite cool that he's had a go at that, like fair play. I don't want to see it, really, but you don't need to dislike the person because it's just not your cup of tea. You know what I mean? Like, respect the efforts for trying something, even if it's not quite your thing.
Yeah, agree with you at the end. John, thank you so much for the Zach Shirty interview. What an engaging character. I really hope his good form continues and he can get even closer to winning a tournament in the near future. Totally agree, John. Brilliant guest. And we loved having him on.
Yeah, same. Yeah, great guy. Looking forward to seeing him play at the qualifiers. And here's Jamie. Congratulations on reaching 200 episodes. Talking Snooker is a brilliant podcast and has been part of my weekly routine for years now. I love the blend of tournament coverage and special guests, and you always make me laugh, even with the comments and jokes I've heard countless times before. Best wishes, and here's to a great few weeks of snooker to end the season. That felt like a slightly backhanded compliment there, but I will take it.
Definitely take it. Definitely take it. Thank you very much, Jamie and Phil. What a marathon. Any other business? Just to say, my latest Sporting Life column on why the Tour Championship hasn't been helped by poor scheduling is on the website now. And I've also talked about that same subject in the new broadcast on Radio Snooker. I'll be on the Jimmy Smith afternoon show on Sydney's 1170 soon after this podcast, actually. And there should be some snooker chat involved with, I'd imagine, Ronnie O'Sullivan coming up. And I'll share that on my various social media platforms. And of course, that Cohen Wilson Crucible program interviews coming up. And over to you. How was Brussels?
Oh, lovely stuff. Yeah, thank you. It was first time I'm playing for my young son. And he took it like a champ, slept through his first landing. Yeah, lovely time wandering around, trying not to drink too many of the 8.5% beers or whatever. It's absolutely lethal stuff. Went to a brilliant gig at an amazing theatre there. So yeah, I had a great time. Thank you.
Great stuff. Have you got anything particular snooker-wise coming up? I mean, Manchester obviously is dominating, so it'll be stuff on the table, won't it, frankly? But yeah, Barry Hawkins giving us an early story.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, yeah. I think hopefully heading over to Manchester on Thursday. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, tour championship stuff, and I'll doing a few interviews this week ahead of the qualifiers with some people who are in there. So yeah, looking forward to that. It's a nice mix of sort of it's it's a big time tournament this week. And then, but I also like getting involved in the sort of the stories that Ben was talking about. Really, it's life or death on the tour for some people in the next couple of weeks. So. Um, speaking to some of the guys who are involved in those kind of storylines.
Smashing, good man. I'm also off on my travels later this week, and I'm also, like you, off to a famous European city. Now, Phil, it's a bit much for you to guess this. There's so many cities out there, so we could be here for ages, and it's obviously been a long enough episode already. So I'm going to give you a clue. Do you mind if I sing?
Oh, never mind. The more the merrier.
Okay, well, here we go. The feeling has gone, only you and I. It means nothing to me. This means nothing to me. Oh, Vienna.
Superb.
Can you guess?
I think I can guess it from that, unless it's a crazy subtle hint to something else.
It's Vienna, isn't it? That's it. You're right. Yeah, looking forward to it. And I'm not just saying that, because I like talking about my travels. It does mean that we'll be late next week with our episode. So if you're expecting it at the start of the week, no doubt the other podcasts will deliver their reviews and chats about the tournament promptly. But I'm afraid we will be rather late. But you know what? It's not such a bad thing in a way if you want to get in a habit, because we are going to turn into our later week service now, aren't we, Phil? Just to tee it up a bit. Tour review next week, then our preview of the World Championship after we know the draw. Then hopefully we'll have our usual post-first round service during the World Championship. And then just to say, we'll have our now traditional live episode from Sheffield. And this year, we'll have superfan Rob Francis with us. Really looking forward to having Rob on the podcast. He's a really top judge of the game. Always makes me laugh an awful lot, and we'll know he'll be amazing value on here. So loads coming up, Phil. It's an exciting time to be a snooker fan, isn't it?
Oh, it's the most exciting time. Yeah, loads to look forward to. Yeah, Rob will be great, I'm sure. And yeah, it's literally every day, isn't it now? Because there's no gap between the tour and the world, so it's relentless, but in a lovely, lovely way.
Well, the only 2 days off are the Thursday when we get the draw, which we'll all be talking about that. We'll try to record later that day, hopefully. We haven't sorted that out yet, but depending on our diaries. And then the whole media day and Crucible Eve, which is a whole manic, wonderful day all in itself. And then 17 magical days and nights. So I think, when did I say? Oh, I said it in my Sporting Life column. I always think I'll try and bank some sleep around the qualifiers, but that's often a foolish, naive idea. Because you end up till the witching hour watching some incredible clammy, I use the word clammy tension, some clammy drama in the qualifiers, eh?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. There's many, many nights of the qualifiers where I think, I'll just be early to bed tonight, and you find yourself at 1 o'clock watching some real edgy stuff that neither of them are going to get to the Crucible because it's the first round and it was real low quality, but you can't turn it off once you've started. But yeah, no, we love it though, don't we? And yeah, those sort of off days in inverted commas. Yeah, the media day is a mad one because you can get so much stuff, and then you've got to turn it around like some of it like almost immediately. So it's a crazy day, and really you just want to get down to the graduate as quickly as possible. So it can be one of the busier days, but it's yeah, no, it's all good stuff coming up though.
Definitely. And I salute you and say thanks for your company and we love having Ben. That was brilliant, Ben Woollaston. That's the sort of main part of this episode. He was just brilliant value. And yeah, see you anon, sir, and have a great week enjoying the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, same to you. And thanks to Ben, he was excellent, and thanks to everyone for listening. And we'll speak to you very soon.
Keep your thoughts coming. Tweet us at Talking Snooker or email talkingsnooker@yahoo.com. Thanks to Ben Woollaston for being a terrific guest. And thank you to you out there for your company from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Cheerio.